Hello! Watching Ligue every single week for the past 2 years may have felt like a thankless task at first, but it's really given me some powerful insight. First on Thomas Tuchel, and now on new Crystal Palace manager, Patrick Vieira. Before we begin, if there's any Crystal Palace fans or channels or anything who are looking to get me on for insight, I will say there isn't too many of you from what I looked at. However, if you are out there and you're looking to get someone on to help your audience understand things about Vieira, then please, I'm your man. For everyone else, there's chapters below, so you could skip to his time at New York City, maybe his playing career, or his time at OGC Nice, and then finally, the fit of Patrick Vieira at Crystal Palace. This is the managerial biography of Patrick Vieira, so let's begin. Patrick Vieira had a 14-year playing career spanning 7 different clubs, winning 3 Premier League titles, 3 Serie A titles, a Euros, a World Cup, and getting into the Team of the Year 6 times in a row. Vieira had an incredible amount of experience under some of the world's most revered coaches. That includes a 9-year spell with Wenger, 3 years with Roberto Mancini, and 2 years under Jose Mourinho. Vieira himself was a central midfielder noted for his aggressive and competitive displays. At 6'4", he was a titan in the middle of the park, and a born leader apparently. At his first club in France, aged 19, he captained his side, which is really unusual for any player. Vieira retired in 2011 at Manchester City, immediately becoming their football development executive, which is basically code for Vieira spending time with the new £200 million training zone or with the performance and recruitment team. Basically, it was a dream apprenticeship, allowing him to spend time as a coach and as a manager with an eye for talent. At first, he openly admitted he had no intentions to move into a managerial role or a head coaching role at any club, but within 2 years, he was leading the Manchester City reserve side. Vieira was praised for giving the younger players autonomy and responsibility, and his reasoning for this was any 19-year-old like himself when he was that age just wanted that responsibility and to be treated like an adult. In his first season with the City reserve side, he finished 4th, which is a massive improvement on the last season that saw them finish 19th. After turning down Newcastle United, Vieira moved to New York City FC in the MLS in November 2015, ahead of the 2016 MLS season. I am still really young. I don't want to rush at all, and I take the example of former players who rush into coaching, and it was a mistake. I don't want to make the same kind of mistakes. Perhaps this was the reasoning to move to one of the affiliated clubs of the Manchester City Football Group in New York City FC. Despite this seamless transition, there was a bit of pressure on Vieira though. This team had David Villa, Frank Lampard, Andrea Pirlo, and even though it was their second season in existence, they wanted to make a big mark on the MLS. Vieira set up a 4-3-3 system, employing Pirlo as a regista. Basically, this meant Pirlo would show himself across the pitch as a passing option and not do too much defensive work. Frank Lampard was deployed as a left attacking midfielder in the 4-3-3, making 12 goal contributions in 21 games, while David Villa squeezed 26 goal contributions out of himself in the 2016 MLS season. On the youth development side, Vieira gave valuable minutes to Jack Harrison and Yangel Herrera in their time on loan from Manchester City. Besides these two players though, there wasn't really many minutes given to young players, but in fairness, he was really tasked with just making a big early mark in this early club's history. In Vieira's first season, City finished 2nd in the Eastern Conference League, 4th overall across both conferences. However, they were thumped 7-0 on aggregate by Toronto FC in the MLS playoffs. Sebastian Giovinco led a superb performance against Vieira's side, and yes, I really did go and watch MLS highlights to make sure my research was on top of this. If that's not worth a subscription, I don't know what is. In the second season, New York City FC finished 2nd again in the Eastern Conference and 2nd overall, but they were still knocked out in the semi-finals of the playoffs, this time by Columbus Crew. Still, there were positives to take from Vieira's time in charge. In 2016, only one other MLS club scored more goals than Vieira's side, with only one other enjoying more possession. And even more encouragingly, no team across both conferences averaged more dribbles per 90 than Vieira's side, showing a positive approach to football. Defensively, things were a little more meh. In 2017, Vieira's second season, New York City FC conceded an on average 12.4 shots per game, which is firmly a mid-table statistic. Still, these were by no means bad statistics, and when he left in 2018 to join OGC Nice, New York City FC gave him a huge farewell and the fans appeared to really miss him. And by fans, I mean all 5 of them, because I can't imagine there were hordes of attendances for a newly state-run club backed with everlasting wealth from across the world. So Nice appointed Vieira in the summer of 2018 ahead of the 2018-19 season. They had just finished 8th place under Lucien Favre, which I know Crystal Palace fans isn't, a name you kind of want to hear at the moment. And they'd finished a mighty 23 points off the top 4 in France. The squad had been powerful before Vieira joined, with Jean-Michel Seri and Ricardo Pereira in there, and Balotelli scoring 18 goals and Alassane Plea scoring 16 goals. All of those players left though, along with the young Saïd Benrahma, raising about £50 million. It's fair to say the club didn't really spend it that well. Danilo Barbosa came in from SC Braga, left. Maizia Maolida joined for £9 million. He scored 5 goals in 3 years. Christophe Helel joined, left. And Youssef Attal joined for £2.7 million. Pretty good business, actually. Anyway, Vieira was tasked with stabilising Nice at the top echelons of the Ligue 1 table, a zone which is growing increasingly competitive with the rise of Monaco, Lyon and Lille. Vieira deployed his trusty 4-3-3 on 18 occasions, while mixing it on 16 occasions with a back three. Nice would move high up the pitch out of possession, but were awkwardly low for some reason in pressures per 90 in Ligue 1. They did complete the 5th most interceptions per 90 though, which was a good stat. And when they wanted to, they could press high, like when they beat Lyon in the 18-19 season, keeping the likes of Ndombele, Aouar, Depay, Fekir, Bertrand Traoré all quiet. Nice struggled without the goal-scoring duo of Balotelli and Plea though, with Alain Saint-Maximin and Youssef Attal joint on top scorers in the league with 6 goals each. Nice scored the 3rd least goals in Ligue 1, but unlike in New York, the defence was actually surprisingly competent. They conceded 35 goals in 38 games. Now let's look at expected goals for this season, which if you aren't aware is a metric used to measure the quality of chance per shot. For example, a shot from the halfway line might have a 0.1% chance of going in, whereas a Timo Werner open goal might have a 90% chance of going in. Expected goals reckon Nice should have scored around 13 more goals than they did, which is a Brighton level underperformance. On the flip side, they should have conceded 14 more goals, which maybe suggests that their goalkeeper Walter Benitez was having a fantastic season in 18-19, and they were also getting a little bit lucky in defence. Whatever the case, Nice finished 8th, and they deeply needed reinforcements in the summer of 2019, and they had just had a massive financial takeover. Kasper Dolberg, Alexis Claude Maurice and Stanley Unsoki all joined the club, and really, they've all been fantastic signings. If Vieira had a hand in either of these 3 signings, really good showing for Crystal Palace fans. Despite losing Saint-Maximin in the summer of 2019, Vieira's season went a lot better. By the time the season was curtailed by the COVID-19 pandemic, as if you weren't aware, Ligue 1 was actually shut down and didn't resume, Nice were 5th and they were just 9 points off 3rd place Rennes. They had squirmed their way into the Europa League, scoring 41 goals in 28 games. However, they did concede 38 goals, which maybe shows expected goals had caught up with them in the 2019-20 campaign. Vieira demanded more short passing and link-up play between his players, which, as noted by Smarter Scout, didn't really suit Kasper Dolberg at the time, but in my opinion, he's really benefited from Vieira's style, and in that first season, he did score a healthy amount of goals. Youth players like Kefram Taram, Malang Sarr, Stanley Unsoki, Alexis Claude Maurice and Andy Pelmard all really benefited from a lot of minutes given to them by Vieira. What I think was a growing problem though under Vieira was the defensive organisation. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people who watch Ligue 1, and particularly myself, can cast their minds back to times where opposition strikers or midfielders would run directly at the Nice defence and the players would fall like dominoes. As well as that, despite attempting the 2nd most short passes in Ligue 1 in 1920 behind PSG, Nice managed to miscontrol the ball the most times in France. In fact, I actually did a lot of research into Nice in January 2020, midway through the season, and I noted some weird systems going on, like the defensive midfielder Wilfried Cyprien doing no defensive work and consistently being out of possession, and a horrific defensive line. 6 months later, the 2021 season arrived, and Nice had spent some money quite well. Amin Gouiri had joined the club from Lyon, and he would make 19 goal contributions in his first season. Hassan Kamara also joined from Rennes, who was widely discussed as one of the best left-backs in France and Europe. I've also spoken to him on Twitter before. Nice guy. Jeffrey Adelaide and Roddy Lopez also joined the club on loan. But with the pressure of the Europa League, Vieira's side completely crumbled. He started to do away from his favoured 4-3-3 and switching into a 3-4-3. Things really fell apart when experienced centre-back Dante got injured, leaving the Nice back line without any organisation. Despite sitting 11th in December, Vieira was sacked. Nice had just lost 2-1 to Dijon, who would go on to finish bottom of Ligue 1, and in the Europa League they had won 1 and lost 5 in their group, featuring Bayer Leverkusen, Slavia Prague and a side I don't want to pronounce. Patrick Vieira departed with his reputation damaged, and when he joined Crystal Palace, lots of Ligue fans took to Twitter to laugh at Palace and suspecting they will get relegated. But I think this is a little harsh. Vieira did a lot of good attacking things at Nice, and while defensively it was a bit of a mess, maybe that club with so many young players just needed a more experienced manager to guide them. He finished with a 39% win rate, and if you compare Nice's players before and after he joined man to man, really the squad was massively downgraded. Now let's move on to the fit at Crystal Palace, and I want to make more of an effort to speculate on transfers because, well, there's a lot of players out of contracts. So let's look at those out of contract players. On the keep side, I would like to keep Sakho and or Cahill because I think Vieira would value some experience in defence like he did with Dante. Townsend and Van Aanholt should probably stay as well. The rest, goodbye. So I suspect Vieira will deploy his 4-3-3 system, so let's plot the players left and some other transfers into the system. Now Gaeta should stay in goal, and I think Riedewald will actually drop back into the defensive line. This is because he's a decent passer and he doesn't really offer too much going forward in midfield, from the stats at least. So I think Vieira will want a ball playing defender in his back line, and next to him probably Gary Cahill or Sakho, one of the experienced defenders, because that way he'll have a bit more organisation in the defence. At right back, Palace needs to recruit, and I think Vieira will go for a slightly more defensive option because left back should be Mitchell's position or Van Aanholt's where they'll attack. So on right back, I think a good pickup would be Ola Aina, who was defensively pretty strong and also good going forward for Fulham. Now I've never been able to pronounce his name, but at the base of midfield it should be Milia, that guy, mainly because he's the best player in Crystal Palace for receiving the ball under pressure. That way he can both provide defensive solidity and a passing option in defence, if midfield. Next to him should be James McArthur, who's one of the Premier League's most underrated midfielders, and if he's get injured, maybe you can go to the academy. I've got a name here, it should be James Taylor, maybe give him a chance. At left centre midfield should be Eze. He needs to get on the ball as much as possible. I don't want to park him at the wing, I want him in midfield and progressing Palace up the pitch. In the striker position should be Wilfried Zaha, and he should be able to drop deep and link up play like Vieira wanted at Nice. Not necessarily as a false nine, but just someone to link the attack and midfield together. On the wings it gets tricky because, well, Palace's wingers aren't very good. More specifically, Vieira will want dribbles and creativity, not something that Schlupp provides even if he stays. So to end this video, I've got a couple of players to recommend for Palace that are quite cheap and they should be able to sign and fit into Vieira's system. First up should be Frenchman Mounir Chouard, who's just been relegated with Dijon, as I mentioned earlier in the video. He was one of Ligue 1's best dribblers. As well as him, a good player might be Jed Wallace of Millwall. Last season he scored 11 and assisted 5 in the Championship, completing 1.8 dribbles per 90. Some really good statistics. At 27 years old, he's never actually played in the Premier League, but even in the Championship season a couple of seasons ago, he contributed to over 20 goals. He's also refused a new contract, so this is definitely the chance for a Premier League team to pick up a pretty solid Championship player who could do well in the Prem. Hope you enjoyed this video. You should subscribe to me because no one else is doing the effort like this into these sorts of videos, so support me. Also, I have way too much free time on my hands, so if you want to ask me questions about Palace or football in general, get in the comments below, shoot me a message on Twitter, TikTok or Instagram, and I'll get back to you. Let's have a chat. Goodbye!